All right, I'm opening this regular meeting of the Midcoast Community Council for March 28th, 2018. Will the council members introduce themselves from my left, please?
Dan Haggerty.
Brandon Kwan.
Claire Touton.
Dave Wilson.
Barbara Mathewson.
Lisa Ketchum.
And Chris Johnson is not going to be able to join us tonight. He is traveling. So we're on to our first item of business, the supervisor's report, and any other government officials who want to speak. Ellie?
Alrighty. Good evening, Midcoast Community Council and Midcoast community members. My name is Ellie Dahlman, and I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Don Horsley to provide two brief updates for you this evening. The first is just a reminder for the Water Summit that will be happening this Friday at 8:30 a.m. in Redwood City, spearheaded by Board of Supervisors President Dave Pine, as well as the CCAG Chair Alicia Aguirre. They're looking forward to an engaging discussion on water management issues in San Mateo County. And I'm not sure if registration is still open, but it is free. It's closed. So for those of you who've signed up, we look forward to seeing you there for that event. The second item that I have for you is just to let you all know that San Mateo County, as of mid-February, has hired an in-house arborist. We're really excited about this new position. Dan Krug is the individual who will be working with us. He's a transplant to San Mateo County from Chicago, and he will be splitting his time between the Parks Department and Planning and Building. In Planning and Building, he'll be reviewing tree removal permits, updating existing tree removal regulations that we're in the process of going through right now. And the number one item on his list is implementation of an arborist report standard that will focus on level of detail required of a tree assessment for approval of tree removal application. He comes to us from Chicago with about 11 years of experience assisting Chicago area residents in understanding their trees' health and structure and introducing strategies to preserve tree canopy. So we're really excited to have his expertise with us to assist in the county parks as well as planning and building as we get ready to finalize the updated tree ordinances. And that's all I have for you this evening, if there's any questions.
Any questions from anybody?
Yeah, I got a question, Ellie. As far as the arborist, I was curious, how do we know how it was handled? How it was handled in the past, and just curious as to what drove to have the new position.
I don't know how they dealt with it in the past, but I can find out and get back to you with some more information about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Ellen. Does anybody else wish to speak as a government official?
Speaking as Harbor District Manager Steve McGraw, he called me and apologized for missing some meetings. He's had conflicts and he couldn't make it tonight. He said to report that the Romeo Pier demolition, which had been delayed one more time because a last-minute permit glitch with salmonids transiting the harbor this time of year has been resolved. And so he said it'll be removed mid to late spring, whatever that means. Also, the lawn tramp dredging, which Ellie reported on last time about they've been looking for a place to store the sand for a while at the airport, and Supervisor Horsley was totally made that happen, basically. And now the FAA has said that's okay.
Cool.
So they can continue with their permitting and hopefully get that done. That's all.
All right. If that's it, I'm going to close that item and we will move on to public comment. Does anybody wish to make a public comment? I don't have any speaker slips. All right. Then the next step is the consent agenda. I believe we have one item on the consent agenda, approval of the minutes for March 14th. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye, carries unanimously, 6-0. And then we are on to our regular agenda. Our first agenda item this evening is on the Devil's Slide Ride. Serenata Leone from Parka will present. And Dan, if you could turn the projector on. I don't know if you want me to project or not, but I assume you do.
No, we do have some handouts.
Okay, great.
And instead of plugging in.
Me. Sure, just.
It's essentially what you've already received, just so you have hard copies.
I'm gonna turn all lights out in front, there's a little light. Let me know if
Thank you.
anybody can't read their notes.
And our projector bulb appears to be on its last leg, so it's going to take a bit to warm up. So you, if you want, you can start talking before it gets on.
Okay, well, maybe it'll turn on while I'm talking. Hi,
I
I'm
hope
Diana
so.
Conti. I'm the CEO of Parka. And this is Serenata Leone, who also works at Parka. And this is Elias Olson over here, who is our volunteer ride director. So we're here again. This will be our 7th annual Devil Slide Ride. It's a century ride, a metric century and a half century bicycle ride, and then we have trail runs that have been a 4K, 11K, and a half marathon. This year we're adding a 30K to that. It's essentially the same as last year, as the previous years. We're not doing anything different except on the trail run, adding the 30K. The only impact of that might be 20 people. And there's one loop of the trail run that go into a residential area in Montera. So would you like me to summarize all this? Or if you've read it, do you want to just go to questions?
It's on the website, and anybody who hasn't read it and wants all the details can certainly do that. So since our projector is still warming up, why don't you go ahead and move on. You've hit the important points, I think.
Okay, so basically, as you know, Park has been around since 1952, serving people with developmental disabilities. All of the proceeds of the Devil Slide Ride go to benefit the clients at Parka. Last year, we had about 600 participants total. We're hoping for at least that this year, and we're happy that it's building up. It's the same routes that we've always had. We try and really take great care to be responsible and make sure that there's no littering, and we put signs up and we put it on the website, that we remove the arrows in a timely fashion, that we have good signage and remove the signage. This year will be the second year that we will have a shuttle service from the Farallon School to take people, because there's that one shoulder that's really been eroded. It was eroded last year in all the rain, so that we shuttle them to the beginning of the Devil Slide Trail. And that's for the metric half just goes down Highway 1 and turns around. The others don't come back in that direction. They go up over the hill and then back down Sharp Park Road. It begins and ends at the community center in Pacifica. Is there anything I've forgotten to say? Yeah. There's been a
Very,
maps.
very dim. I apologize, folks. But it says on the website, so you're welcome to look at it later.
Also have some extra handouts.
Yeah, handouts are available.
Are there any questions?
I don't think so. We've always had a good reputation from your rides in the past. So.
Well, one thing I did forget in the summary is that we are in process for all of the permits. We get about 30 to 35 permits a year, so that they're all up to date. And there's some of them we have to wait till a little bit longer before we submit it, but we're not anticipating any problem with any of that.
Claire, did you have a question?
Yeah, last year, as I recall, there was some discussion of your dog walk portion.
Yes.
And they were in the process of putting together recommendations. And there was some talk that your project was going to be a little bit of a prototype. So how did it go?
It went actually really well. We had about 50 people who showed up for the dog walk whale talk, and so we had a docent that was talking about the whales, and the whales were very kind to us. They actually spotted 3 whales. So we obviously can't guarantee that again next year, but that was wonderful. People were just thrilled. It was a beautiful day. This year, it's on June 30th. It's earlier this year than what we had in the past.
But there was no problem with the dogs?
There's no problem with the dogs.
Okay.
That's all Pacifica, so it's a long good.
Yeah, it's all contained within Pacifica, the dog walk, whale watch.
Right. Yeah, and any questions from anybody else on the council? Any questions from anybody in the audience? Well, thank you for coming, Dan.
I was wondering, with so many riders on the road, I was wondering if there's any opportunity where you can get feedback from the riders as far as how the riders feel from a bicyclist perspective, what could possibly be some high priority minimum improvements to the road.
Well, every
And
year.
is it possible that information could get back to the MCC?
Oh, for improvements to the road, not
The highway
course.
one, as far as a cyclist perspective.
We can add that. We do a survey every year, and we get a pretty high percentage of people who respond.
There's not a lot that they can do, but I mean, I'm a cyclist also, and I think that there are certain areas if they just gave them a little bit, just a little bit more room, it would make the world a difference.
Yeah, well, that one stretch is the bad part, but
So-
we can certainly do that.
I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Well, building on what Dan said, do you have, I know you've got a shuttle bus, which sounds like it's going to be helpful, but have you had any interaction with Caltrans in terms of the accessibility of shoulders and that kind of thing?
The accessibility of what now?
Shoulders on which to ride?
We have not. We have not. We're just so relieved we don't have to deal with Caltrans. I mean, it's just like, it was so frustrating. We had one year where they kept changing their mind, and every time they changed their mind, we had to change the sign. So those signs are really expensive, and then you have to pay to have somebody come up and reprogram it and move it. And that went on until, 2 days before the event, and finally I had to call Senator Jerry Hill and ask his help. And I don't know what he did, but about an hour later, I got a call from Caltrans saying, oh, no problem, it's all set up now. So we haven't. I think if we can help with any advocacy on fixing that shoulder, we're happy to do that. And we're open to suggestions about that, because it really needs to happen.
It is a major issue.
I mean, it's great because there's just this big bike lane through the tunnel, but just getting up to that is not for anybody who is faint of heart on a cycle.
Maybe just a suggestion, something we could provide.
Trustee,
Marcia?
Marcia?
We had to action on this.
Hold on, one person at a time.
I was just going to say that maybe we could provide something in writing that we actually needed to modify our event because we.
I'd be happy to do that. I can explain why and give the facts and figures if there's some place you'd like me to do that.
Sure. One of us can meet with you, either myself or Chris Johnson, and sit down and you can tell you what you got. And I don't want to put you to a lot of work, but we do talk to Caltrans and the CHB. And the
So
county agencies,
should I just email you something?
Sure, that'd be great. If I
All
have
right.
questions, then we can get together.
Happy to do that.
Can I add, from my opinion, I think it should be, from the minimum realistic, minimum, improvements that, some people might throw out all these wild, that might kind of.
No
never-
hyperbole.
Right.
Just the facts.
That's my part.
Okay, got it.
Okay, and Marcia, I'm sorry, did you have a
That's okay.
question?
I just want to say that this is such a well-run event. I've done trail runs a couple of times, and it's just a lovely event, and I'm really glad that you guys put so much thought into it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really work on it all year.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate that. And if you know of anybody who'd like to sign up, will you direct them to the website?
We will do that, and your presentation's on our website, and I think the
And there's a
actual
link
ride
to your,
will be on the calendar.
there's a link to your website with this meeting material too.
What is it?
There's a link to the website with the meeting materials.
Yeah.
On ours, yeah.
All right, well, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming out and keeping us informed.
Thank you so much. Good night.
All right, well, I think this is going to be a quick meeting tonight.
Well, unless this segment's long.
All right, so I'm closing agenda item 4A, moving on to agenda item 4B, which is a presentation from our roundabout consultant, Michael Walworth, who had comments on the 10% design that the MCC received at the end of January. And I realize, again, this is hard to see. It is on the website, the MCC website, as it is all of our presentations and letters. The 10% design is a very early design, but Michael had some fairly important comments. It looked like the 10% design was leading to a higher entrance speed than exit speed. And that's the reverse of what you typically want for safety. So he suggested some changes in that area, and we will pass this on to the county planning department, who will undoubtedly pass it on to their consultants. We don't know exactly where the design stands at this point. They were going to move from the 10% design on to a 30 or 40% design, but unless Ellie has heard, we don't know where that stands at the moment. So this is, for those of you who aren't familiar with this long-running item, this is the intersection of Cypress Avenue and Highway 1 in Moss Beach, where there's a very narrow road going off to the west, but it's the main access to Seal Cove and was intended to be the main access for the Big Wave project. What finally got this thing moving was the Big Wave project, because of their traffic, was required to run traffic studies and, if justified, pay for intersection improvements. In the second version of that, approval from the Board of Supervisors, they worked out, instead of making the Big Wave folks actually do the work, they will contribute money, and whether it will be a signal, a roundabout, or something else is still not final. The county, with the help of Supervisor Horsley on behalf of the MCC, has been leaning towards a roundabout. And I'm not going to rehash that whole discussion. But anyway, this is it. You can see on the diagonal lines on the top and the bottom show the edge of the right-of-way. And you can somewhat see the existing highway is on the lower end here. This is the existing highway here. And the roundabout moves upwards in order to provide a somewhat oval path for traffic. And I am not a traffic engineer. I cannot tell you what all these designations mean, but Michael has run simulations and shown where he believes the fastest paths will be, and that some of those fast paths touch the curb a little bit too closely. And that's why he recommends reversing, altering the design to lead to a higher exit speed than entry speed. His other concern was good-sized trucks, such as the Safeway trucks that we see and other trucks of similar size with a 40-foot trailer, will end up riding up on the curb at various points. And that is a potential for accidents. It increases the wear on the roundabout. So he recommends some changes on that. The WB50 truck that's talked about here is the standard semi with a 40-foot trailer. So with all of that from Michael, this shows the paths if you modify the design slightly. to lead to the lower entrance speeds. So we will forward this to the county for their information, and we'll see what comes out of the next round of roundabout design. We all hope that we get something there. It's not guaranteed, even if the Big Wave project goes ahead, that we're going to get the roundabout. But there's been back and forth chit-chat that indicates that there is already justification for doing something at that intersection, even if the Big Wave project was never built. So then it would be just a question of funding. I'm not going to bother to display the letter. It's very, very brief, just saying we're passing this on. Does anybody on the council have clarifying questions? Dan?
As far as big waves, the percent that they're going to contribute to cost?
I do not remember the amount. Ellie, do you happen to remember the amount?
What I recall is that they would be required to contribute the equivalent cost of what the installation of a signal would be. And so planning and building would have more information about that, but essentially that those funds would go towards whatever the ultimate improvement is to go in to this intersection. And as Dave mentioned, recent traffic counts that were completed, I think late last year, do show that a warrant for the warrant has been met at this intersection for some sort of control, even without any new developments going in. So at this point, we're kind of at a point where we are gathering feedback on the preliminary designs. We anticipate continuing the conversation with Caltrans to also gather their feedback, and then really the big piece of the puzzle that we're currently in search of is identifying a funding source to bring these preliminary designs to construction-ready designs, and then ultimately to construct the improvement.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I think that depending on the location of an intersection, typical cost of lights could vary, greatly. So I just wanted to request that the MCC's kind of kept in the loop as best as possible for the spirit of making sure that the Big Wave, certainly contributes, their fair portion, since they're driving the need.
Right, yeah. The only actual dollar figure that's ever been mentioned was by the Big Wave traffic consultant, and that was based on prices at the time they did the original design. And there were a few comments that it might have been optimistic, but in any case, the pricing will be done at the time of the construction, I guess.
And second, I understand that the truck kind of wear with the truck curb is part of the whole design. So you mentioned that with this particular design, there's potential for extra truck wear. So
well, it would. The issue that Michael was concerned about. So the picture at the bottom here is an actual roundabout that was built, not exactly the same design, but it was one that was built with what he views as incorrect geometry, so that the trucks were riding up on the curb quite a bit. With a normal roundabout, they should never be riding up on the outside curb. They're designed with an inside apron that slopes up so that big trucks, fire trucks, etc., don't have to completely follow the curve.
But yeah, they could roll over that apron without any problem at all.
Right. But this is actually the outside curve, and that's the geometry issue that he's concerned about.
And this preliminary design was designed by?
DKS, the county's consultants. The same folks that have been working on the designs for Connect the Coast Side and the pedestrian safety crossings.
And it's difficult to see the image up there, but the concern about the higher speed of entrance is just simple geometry, so they just got to work on the geometry.
Right, and it's a well-understood thing. It's not, so Michael is not doing a full analysis, given the funding we had available. So he was trying to do as comprehensive analysis as he could within the funding we had, rather than doing a really detailed funding. So this is feedback to the DKS team, who are getting substantially more dollars than Michael is on what he sees as potential design issues.
And DKS has not yet responded to any comments.
We have not heard any updates from Rob Bartoli, who is the project planner on this. I've asked for updates. He had thought there might be some updates at the end of February, early March. We haven't seen those yet, so something is delaying it, presumably.
Give it a little time. Thank you, Dave.
Brandon?
So, from what I'm getting, Michael is suggesting a more eccentric ovalish circle to mitigate the speeds.
Yes, that's been his recommendation from the very beginning for this style, and that's in fact what Caltrans built on a similar roundabout up in Fort Bragg on Highway 1.
So this kind of increases the size of the roundabout if it's...
It does increase the size in one dimension, yes.
Yeah. So has the properties been acquired yet?
No, because this is still a preliminary project. When Michael was out here, October, September, I've forgotten, we went out to the site with the DKS project engineers and with Nicholas, who is now the county real property manager, and looked at the property that would have to be acquired for the roundabout. It's a fairly small slice on the southeast and the northwest. And the property on the northeast is already pretty much unbuildable. So it's really more the one on the southwest that might potentially be an issue.
You mean the one by the corner of Terrace Avenue and Marine Boulevard?
Well,
Cypress Avenue?
This is all Cypress Avenue.
Yeah.
So no Marine or...
Yeah, all right.
Or,
yeah, so I'm just saying the corner between Terrace Avenue and Cypress Avenue, that's the potential spot that...
this one?
Yeah. Yeah, the one towards down towards the western portion.
And that would take a little more space than the other.
Yeah, because I'm seeing it's kind of overlapping a potential structure or...
No, there's no structure there. It's all unbuilt. Anybody else got questions?
Dave, I'm sorry. So on our website, we have 10% design, we have evaluation, but I'm not finding anything similar to this.
Yeah, it's there on the front
Next
page.
line, the next line.
Wall work
Under
review.
the post for tonight's meeting, under the roundabout, there is the 10% design, the feasibility study, wall works report. It's all there.
Is this the wall work?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the community? Marcia, come up to the podium so you get picked up on the video.
Do we have the lights now? It's getting
Marcia
darker.
Yates, Moss Beach. I've kind of been out of the loop a bit about this, but I'm just wondering, how does this fit in with Connect the Coast sign? Or does it, or?
It is not, strictly speaking, part of Connect the Coast side. It has been talked about in that context a number of times, simply because all the same players are involved, but it is a quote-unquote separate project.
Okay, and then with the Connect the Coast side, with the roundabout, are they still projecting that they might put 2 or 3 traffic lights in Moss Beach?
Can I answer?
Sure, go, Lisa.
So what we saw in, was almost 2 years ago was the last version we saw of Connect the Coast Side, and they were proposing 2 signals in Moss Beach, at Cypress in California. Now, what we anticipate, since they've switched gears to the roundabout, is the next rollout for Connect the Coast Side will instead show a roundabout at Cypress instead of the signal. It looks like that's where they're going, because the feasibility study said, yes, the roundabout was feasible, and Caltrans requires a roundabout. They prefer it, if it's feasible.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, so the desired outcome on this is to approve the extremely short letter with Michael's presentation as an attachment to county planning.
May I make a motion?
You may make a motion.
I move that we accept Michael Walworth's report and forward it to the county project planners and Supervisor Horsley.
Second?
All right, all in favor? Carry 6-0. No abstentions.
May I make a recommendation that, since the letter is so succinct, that you just put that text in your cover email, and that way when the recipients receive it, they can just click on Michael's report, and it makes the process simpler.
Sure, I'll go ahead and attach the letter as an attachment, but I'll put it in the email. Sounds like a great idea. All right, I'm closing item 4B. Em, would you like to speak?
If you had anything for me, I can.
Well, actually, if you could come to the podium, it's not specifically for you, but we had a presentation on the Devil's Slide Ride, which is in June 30th. You may have heard about it. And one of the questions or issues that came up during that was the narrowness of the shoulders on Highway 1 just south of the tunnel. And I was wondering if you, in the CHP, have somebody who works with Caltrans on trying to get those kinds of things improved.
Yeah, so my lieutenant is Shannon McGreen. He's the one that has his contacts with Caltrans as far as any issues in our particular area with any roadway designs that need to be fixed, any signage, anything that requires, a lot of times we have a lot of shrubs that are overgrowing. So he has his contact that gets all those people in the right areas to address all those things like that. And it's Lieutenant Shannon McGreen, and he's out of the Road City office. I don't have his email offhand, but you can call our office line at 650-369-6261 and talk to Lieutenant McGreen, and he should be able to help you out with any. I know that's sort of outside of area, but he still has contacts with Caltrans that can. Their district goes throughout the whole Bay Area.
Right.
So.
Okay. Great. Yeah. And we're working with Caltrans on that. Some other issues in Montera, but the more points of contact we get, and particularly because this is a safety issue, and you guys see safety issues a lot, it would help if you guys passed on your concerns as well. Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions or issues for Sergeant Reeves?
It's officer.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, officer.
All right, well, it may not be able to handle, there was an accident on Highway 101 the other day and with a Tesla and.
Yeah, so I can't really speak on, they're still doing the investigation on it. So the NTSB actually got involved as well, so they're doing.
NTSB?
Yeah, National Traffic Safety Board. I think that's who was there. They were all doing, so they pulled all the computer data from the car, and they're doing their investigation. I don't know what the particulars of our Golden Gate Division MATE team is involved with it now. There are accident investigators, the guys that are really, really knowledgeable about some of these crashes. So it's under investigation, and we're working with Tesla, a bunch of agencies, to get it figured out on the actual cause of the collision. But if there's witnesses, they can feel free to call our office and speak to and give any information they have, if they saw the collision or may have any other information to help us out with that.
Was this an autonomous car?
They don't know.
No, yeah, there's no information as far as that. And if I couldn't speak on it because it's so preliminary.
It hit the divider on the left side with flyover carpool lane, goes to South 85.
Yeah, so there's a carpool dedicated lane that splits. There's 2 carpool lanes at that location. One carpool lane goes to 85, one continues onto 101.
And so just to be clear, that if any community member sees kind of like a safety issue that we feel should eventually be addressed to Caltrans, or even, just to be very clear, the jurisdiction of Highway Patrol is only on the interstates?
No, it's all Highway 1, basically, in
Okay.
unincorporated San Mateo County. So that covers from.
But anything that,
and any
any entrance to any on-ramp to a freeway?
Yeah, so any
Certainly.
freeways like
Right.
101, 280, 92, 85, those are all that have restricted access is what they call it, where there's an on-ramp that gets onto the highway and gets off to the highway. That's our jurisdiction, in addition to any unincorporated roadways within the county. So that, obviously, El Granada, Moss Beach, Highway 1, basically all the way to almost from Devil Slide all the way down to just north of Sam's Chowder House. Then it's the Sheriff's Office, Half Moon Bay, and then until you get to south of Miramontes Point Road, that's where we pick up again. So wherever it's incorporated on Highway 1 in Half Moon Bay, that's the Sheriff's Office jurisdiction. But everything outside of there is ours,
So
for traffic-related incidents.
So if a community member addressed or noticed something that could be improved, it's
Absolutely,
perfectly
yeah.
fine to
Yeah.
communicate to your lieutenant.
Yeah, or at
Lieutenant
least contact. You can either contact me or my Sergeant Jason Ivey, and you can forward the information to us. And at least we can go out there and take a look at it and see what the issue is, and then see if we need to bring it up to the next level with Caltrans, and go with that route. I mean, that's how we work with Caltrans all the time to sort of address some of these maybe roadway issues that could maybe causing some safety issues.
Right. Great, thank you.
And to be clear, mostly for the video, I'm sure everybody in the room knows this, anybody who wants to report those kinds of issues in the Midcoast can work through the Midcoast Community Council, send mail to our midcoastcommunitycouncil@gmail.com, and we will do our best to route things to the right place.
Yeah, and also too, any other traffic complaints within the area on the Midcoast that need to be addressed, make sure to contact us as well. And,
Great.
we're always there to help you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, council activity. Anybody got anything that they want to report on?
Does that include announcements?
Yep,
Did we already
council
say that?
activity, announcements.
You could go ahead first.
I'm trying to find something here, but basically, I think they are putting out requests for volunteers to count the bike and pedestrian traffic again this year. Is that right, Ellie? Or I just saw something that came across my email, but I don't see it at the moment. It's worth people volunteering to do. It's helpful, I think, in planning for non-mechanized traffic. But I would like to say, in case you have any input in it, Chris and I both did this last year, and they had us out on Highway 1, at least they had me out on Highway 1, counting people walking and biking. When everybody was down on the trail, walking and biking, and it was a complete waste of time. So if they could maybe adjust what they want to count out here, it would be more helpful.
Yeah, I recall, I think the county does counts in September, but I wonder maybe this is the school or Caltrans does.
Okay, so.
If you find it's forwarded to me and I'll take a look and see.
Okay, so maybe I'm off base on that, but for future reference, that it should be revised. Okay. Also, something else that just popped up here, which sounds good, and I'm not sure who's sponsoring it, but on April 7th, which is a Saturday from 9 to 11, there'll be a trail etiquette workshop in Moss Beach at one of the equestrian centers, which is supposed to be teaching dog walkers, equestrians, hikers, trail runners, and bikers. It's best practices and safety tips on local trails. So that might be something people might want to look into.
Is that all local trails or
It says state, county, and GGNRA coast side.
Where's that at, Claire?
It's at the Ember Ridge Equestrian Center.
Okay.
Is it focused on trails with equestrian activity?
It's for multi-use trails. And then the other thing is I went to the Half Moon Bay Planning Commission meeting last night, where they're in the very early stages of looking at the proposed hotel next to the James Ford dealership. There was a large turnout and also some concerns about other upcoming proposed plans, like around Dunes Beach. What I found very useful was the clear presentation of the process that they go through in making their plans. And it's something that we want to keep an eye on as they progress.
Excuse me, could I add one thing?
Sure, go up to the podium so it's picked up.
At the end of that meeting, Jill, who works with the planning department, they are going to have a walk through the EIR statement and how to find things after the preliminary EIR gets published. And so I thought that anybody who's interested in the process, because there's so much of that stuff going on around here now, that it'd be interesting for people to go to that meeting when it gets announced, because then we know how the county, we know more about the county process and how they look at EIR statements. So they didn't say when that was going to happen, but it's going to be a workshop without the commissioners. It's going to be just for Joe Blow public. So I think it'd be really interesting for us to be able to go to that.
Yeah, I think it was announced for mid-April. I don't remember the exact date. Anything else, Claire?
Yes.
Brandon?
So I went to the county planning zoning hearing meeting. In that meeting, the Wilkinson School, they just renewed their permit to continue operations from kindergarten to 8th grade. From what I read, that as of right now, they're not continuing their preschool program. They're just doing the K through 8, and then the Half Moon Bay Distillery, they finally got approved after a year and a half. There's a lot of jubilation in that, and I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's going to be finished. The building would be finished within the year. And then I also went to the charter meeting. At that charter meeting, the coroner and the assessor clerk were both there, as well as Dave Pine and Carol Groom. They've spoken about the assessor clerk, Mark Church. He spoke about why he wants the wants to keep the election department with with that not separated, and the coroner spoke about why he wants to maintain the position to be an elected office instead of appointing. Dave Pine's the president of the Board of Supervisors, so he was there to preside over the meeting, as well as Carol Groom. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I do.
Go for it.
Some planning items. The last time I reported on the Caltrans vegetation management thing, and I had just received that material that afternoon and hadn't read it carefully enough. And there's more to it than I reported. And in particular, the northern section across from the entrance to the Christmas tree farm, right at the bottom of the hill, not the northern section, the eastern segment, has a whole bunch of madrones that they're going to take out, which is the choice tree that most concerned me. And anyway, I will investigate it more. And the guy from Lafayette has continued to stay in touch and follow this. And there's apparently Santa Cruz County, they've been pushing back against PG&E. Next item, the Harbor Village RV Park. the one at Capistrano and Highway 1 there's a resubmittal, and we got a referral. I've asked for digital plans of the landscape, and because you can't see those, you can't read those drawings. And, but there is that one printout there. Can I have that sheet? Sure. This summarizes changes made. So we talked about the view corridor and the landscaping. It says here, the 3-foot-high landscape mounds and the New Zealand Christmas trees have been removed from Capistrano Road. A new 4-foot-high fence will replace the existing white picket fence. The new fence will allow landscaping to grow within it, with new landscaping selected to not exceed 5 feet in height. New grade contours, I don't think they've changed the grading. I think they just put the contours on the plan, but I can't see from the map, but we'll find out. It's saying here that sites, whatever, are they're 6 feet below the highway, and this other group of sites are 8 feet below the highway, and the others are, anyway, so they're saying that you won't see them that much. Anyway, basically, we're asked to comment on it again, and so I will look at it more carefully, and perhaps we'll put this on our next agenda. There's some other things that I had thought of too that we didn't mention before. The fact that this is a residential use and is right next to an ag field and with no buffer there. And, well, whatever, I won't get into it. But next item I have is, oh, this is something, we didn't get a referral or anything, but I saw this on the planning site, so this is new. It's going to, we would get a referral on it eventually. So in Moss Beach, a mixed-use development permit application has been handed in at the corner of Highway 1 and Virginia. This is across Virginia from the Gran Amigo, and it's mixed use, so the bottom floor is commercial, and the second floor is residential, 3 units, and equal square footage. The total square footage of the building is 5,400 square feet. And then 14 uncovered parking spaces and 5 covered. And so this is the neighborhood commercial zoning, and the fact that it has a residential component means that there will be setbacks and there will be coastside design review, so that's helpful. Of course, we have no idea what the building looks like yet, haven't seen the plans. But basically, empty lot, I mean, you know, we talk about having neighborhood serving commercial uses, it might be a good thing. Anyway, then the last thing, just to let you know that the Mavericks Event Center is seeking permits to convert to a 92-seat restaurant. And we had, part of the permit application is to legalize the new solid perimeter fence that they put in. We had received this referral all of a sudden late, just before our last meeting, and it said on there it was going to be at the Planning Commission this morning, and so there was no hope for us to comment, and I sent in an email with some comments about the view from Princeton to the harbor and the landscaping. You know, no need to block that with landscaping. And but anyways, it turned out they pulled it from the Planning Commission agenda. I don't know why, and so that may come up on the next agenda. I don't know. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else from anybody?
The new fish and chips place opened in Montera after 5 years.
You mean the Fish and Freak Days?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And that is actually somewhat related to planning issues. Part of what they were held up by was violation notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the permit site didn't show that any of that had been resolved. It's just there, so I don't know what the story is.
I just wanted to comment on what Lisa was saying about the Mavericks Event Center. If we're losing, no, can't say that.
It's not on the agenda.
Okay.
It's informational, you can report it, but if it's conversational,
Okay.
please hold on.
Can I say something totally unrelated? No, maybe not.
I would rather not.
Okay.
Okay, I have one meeting I attended, that was the Granada Community Services District Park Advisory Committee meeting that I mentioned at our last meeting was going to be happening. This is the first meeting of everybody being reappointed to their terms with 3 new members. They were prioritizing work. They discussed the pump track. They discussed Quarry Park. There is a plan to try and get GCSD-related summer activities this summer. Pat Turney was working very hard on that. I don't know if that'll happen. It's really short notice, but for anybody with kids, keep an eye on the GCSD website. And then there's also a discussion of doing a lot of improvements to the website or adding a different website to cover parks issues. So there's a lot going on. And there was a lot of discussion about how frequently they're going to meet. The resolution creating the PAC said at least quarterly, but with the amount of work they have, they're thinking monthly or perhaps bi-monthly. They schedule meetings out for at least the next 3 quarters. So those are should be on the GCSD website soon if you're not already. That's all I've got. All right, anything else? Okay, closing council activities, future agendas. We have the Big Lift Literacy Project report on April 11th. We have the sea level rise presentation on April 11th. And we potentially have something from the RCD in April. I need to follow up with the RCD on that.
At the second meeting in April?
It was, Brittany contacted me, and we left it open. I'm going to get in touch with her next week and find out if she was really wants to do it or not. So that's all I've got for future agenda items. Does anybody else have anything for upcoming agendas? We heard potentially from Lisa.
Well, I might have something, but I probably would better for me to email you on.
Okay.
May I ask if anybody on the council wants to review the RV park with me or take any part in preparing that?
I will.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I will then close close future agendas, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll forward the motion to adjourn.
All right. We are adjourned.